What if the one voice that could save your life was the quietest in the room? In a world of billion-dollar deals and glass tower power plays, one man was moments away from losing everything, until a housemaid knelt before him and said, "Don't go." This isn't just a story about business, it's about betrayal, redemption, and the unexpected heroes we overlook. Stay with us to the end, because what he found out next will change how you trust, how you love, and who you listen to. If you're new here, hit subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this, because some stories aren't just watched, they're felt, they're remembered. It was a cold, glassy morning in Montreux. The lake sat still, like it was holding its breath. High above it, nestled in a hillside villa overlooking the water, Elias Moreau adjusted the cuffs on his navy blazer. He didn't rush. He never rushed. At tea. 52. Elias was the co-founder of Solstice Holdings, a multinational real estate empire known for turning ghost towns into golden cities. Today, however, something was off. He couldn't name it, but it sat in his chest like a stone. He reached for his car keys. Just then a voice broke the silence. "Sir, please, wait." He turned. There, by the marble archway, was Amina, the maid, not even 6 months in his home. 28, Senegalese, small in frame but not in presence. Today she knelt, her hands clutched tightly together, her face pale, eyes wet. "You must not leave this house today," she whispered. Elias blinked. Amina had never spoken to him like this, never raised her voice, never intervened. He tilted his head calmly. "What is this?" She looked up, her lips trembled. "I had a dream, monsieur." He watched her carefully. She continued, "You wore this same suit. You took that same car. But you never came back." He raised an eyebrow. "There was blood," she added, screaming. "People calling your name." The room went still. No wind, just the faint ticking of the vintage clock on the wall. Elias should have laughed. He didn't believe in premonitions. He believed in numbers, in contracts, in market trends. But something about her, the fear in her eyes, the urgency in her voice, it wasn't a performance. This wasn't fear of punishment. It was fear of loss. He took a slow breath. "Amina," he said gently, "you're just nervous. It's nothing." "No, monsieur," she said, her voice low but firm. "If I let you go today and something happens, I'll never forgive myself." Footsteps echoed down the staircase. Elias? It was Camille, his wife. Mid-40s, French-Moroccan. Elegant, sharp as a blade in silk. She stopped at the bottom step, took in the scene. Amina on her knees, Elias standing frozen. "What is going on?" Camille asked. "She says I shouldn't go," Elias replied, eyes still on Amina. Camille scoffed. "She's a maid, darling, not a mystic. She had a dream." "Oh, wonderful," Camille sighed, stepping into the living room. "We're late for a multi-million-euro meeting, and now we're taking business advice from nightmares." Elias didn't respond. He felt it again, that strange pressure in his chest. Not pain, just weight. The same kind of weight he felt the day before his father died. He looked down at his hands. They weren't shaking, but they didn't feel steady. "Either," Amina whispered. "If you stay, you'll be safe, I know it." Camille narrowed her eyes. This is ridiculous. But Elias didn't move. He stepped toward the center table, set down his keys, and turned away from the door. "I'm not going," he said. Silence. Amina's breath caught. Camille's eyes widened. "You're what?" she asked, voice clipped. "I said I'm not going. For God's sake, Elias, I said no." He walked past them both into the den, sat down slowly, folded his hands together, and listened. To the clock, to the hum of the lake wind against the glass, to his heart, which was still beating. Louder now. He sat there for over an hour. Camille stormed upstairs. The air grew thick, heavy with tension. But Elias didn't move. He watched the light shift across the floor. He heard the distant sound of traffic, and then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered with a cautious, "Hello?" A shaky voice responded. "Mr. Moreau, this is Marianne from the Genève office. I need to inform you." A pause. She took a breath. "Your driver, Eve. There's been an accident. The car was totaled." Elias sat up straight. "Where?" "The A1 route, near Roll. A lorry lost control, crashed into the side of your vehicle. It flipped multiple times." Elias didn't speak. His eyes found the keys still resting on the table. The same keys, the same car, the same road. Eve had taken his place. "Is he alive?" "Critical condition. They rushed him to the hospital. We thought you were inside." Elias hung up, gently, carefully. He walked to the window and looked out over the water. Still calm, still holding its breath. Amina stood in the hallway. She didn't say a word, didn't need to. Her eyes met his. Something passed between them. Gratitude, fear, respect. Camille reappeared minutes later, phone in hand. "You're not dressed?" "There's been an accident." She arched a brow. "And?" "Eve took the car. A lorry hit him. He's in ICU." She didn't react, not visibly. "Thank God you weren't in it," she muttered, as though reading a weather report. Elias turned to her. "I could have been," she shrugged. "Accidents happen every day." He studied her. The way she tapped at her screen. The way her mouth stayed perfectly still. "You're not relieved?" I said, "Thank God. Isn't that enough?" It wasn't. Not anymore. Elias walked back to the den, sat down, pressed his palms together, and for the first time in years, he felt small, not because of failure, but because something beyond him had spoken, and he had listened, and because of that, he was still alive. The sun had moved, but the heaviness remained. Elias didn't go to the office that day. He canceled every meeting, every call. He stayed in the house, walking from room to room like he was tracing ghosts. That evening, he opened a drawer and pulled out a photo. It was from 8 years ago, his wedding to Camille. She wore a cream-colored gown that hugged her like silk water. He stood tall beside her, hand in hers, both smiling. The photo was perfect, almost too perfect. That night, over a quiet dinner, Camille barely spoke. She cut her vegetables delicately, drank her wine in small, slow sips. Elias watched her, not with affection, but with curiosity. Who is this woman? He thought. He remembered when they met, at an art exhibit in Marseille. She was a curator, elegant and smart. He was in town for a land acquisition. She'd asked him a question about a painting. He answered with a metaphor. She laughed. They had drinks. Week later, they had dinner. 2 years later, they had a wedding. But something in her had shifted. The laughter faded. The warmth cooled. She didn't want questions. She wanted space, and she hated staff. She'd dismissed 3 maids before Amina, always. For strange reasons, she breathes too loud. She walks like she owns the place. She watches too much. Each time Elias didn't fight, he chose peace over arguments. Solstice Holdings was growing fast. There were acquisitions across Africa and Eastern Europe. He traveled more, slept less, talked less, but he watched. And lately, Camille avoided his gaze. Even now, across the table, she spoke without meeting his eyes. "I spoke to Jacques," she said casually. "He wants to reschedule the meeting for Friday." Elias didn't respond immediately. Jacques Delacroix, his business partner of 25 years. They met in university in Lyon, built Solstice from a single laptop and a basement office. Jacques was the dreamer. Elias was the anchor. Jacques charmed investors. Elias negotiated the deals. Together, they made billions. But lately, Jacques had changed. Too many overseas trips, too many late-night texts Camille never explained. Elias noticed. He noticed everything. "Tell him I'll let him know," Elias replied, picking up his glass. "You're not going?" Camille's tone turned sharp. "I haven't decided." She frowned. "Elias, you're not making sense. You can't run a business on feelings." He looked at her, long and slow. "Maybe not, but feelings just saved my life." Camille scoffed again. You're really letting that girl's dream run your calendar now." He didn't answer, but she had already said too much. Later that night, Elias walked into the guest lounge where Amina was folding laundry. She stood up immediately. "I'm sorry, monsieur." "No." "Sit," he said. She looked nervous. He pulled up a chair. "Tell me," he said gently, "why did you really speak up this morning?" She hesitated, then said, "Because I saw it. I felt it. I've had dreams before, but this one..." She looked away. "I woke up crying. I knew it wasn't just a dream." He nodded slowly. "Have you always had visions?" She looked surprised. "Yes. Since I was a child. My grandmother said it runs in the bloodline." Elias leaned back. He didn't believe in superstition, but he believed in truth, and her voice sounded like truth. "What do you see now?" he asked. She looked into his eyes. "You're not done being betrayed." Elias felt the words like ice. He didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He just sat there and watched the last threads of trust unravel in the silence between them. The next morning arrived slowly. Montreux was foggy, muted, like the town itself was holding back something it wanted to scream. Elias woke with a weight in his chest. Not fear, not grief, just a tightness. Like the truth was circling him, and hadn't landed yet. He dressed in silence, skipped breakfast, avoided Camille. She was in the sunroom, reading some fashion blog, sipping her almond milk latte. She didn't look up. Elias stepped outside, walked along the stone path that curled around the villa. The lake shimmered below, but he barely noticed. He needed air. He needed space. He didn't know what he believed anymore. A maid's dream had saved his life, and now every instinct inside him said it wasn't over. When he returned inside, Amina was waiting, not in the hall, not in the shadows, but in the library, the room Elias retreated to when he didn't want to be found. She stood near the window, dusting the blinds, but she wasn't really cleaning. She was waiting. He paused in the doorway. She turned. "Sir." Her voice was almost a whisper. "I know it's not my place, but I had another dream." He stepped inside. "Tell me." She exhaled slowly. This time it was clearer. "You were signing papers. I don't know what they were. But after that, everything collapsed." Elias stared at her. "What do you mean collapsed?" "You lost everything," she said. "Your company, your home, your name." He felt a strange chill run through him. "There were police," she continued. "They came for you. You were handcuffed, and everyone turned away like they didn't." "Know you?" Elias sat down, quietly. She added, "Don't sign anything this week, whatever they bring, no matter who it is. Don't sign." He said nothing, but his jaw tensed. Her words clung to the room like incense smoke. She picked up her cloth and walked out. No more was needed. He sat there for a long time. Later that afternoon, Jacques called. His voice, as always, was bright. "Elias, mon frère, we missed you yesterday. The clients were furious, but I calmed them down. Good news, we can still secure the Dubai deal. You just need to review and sign the revised documents. I'll send them tonight." Elias forced a polite response. "Sure, send them over." But his hand was already cold. When the envelope arrived, it was thick, elegant, too elegant. He took it to his study, opened it slowly, reviewed the pages, and found something strange. The figures didn't add up. The land valuation was off. The listed payout account, he didn't recognize it. A foreign name, a foreign bank. His pulse quickened. He remembered Amina's warning. "Don't sign." He closed the file, locked it away, made a call to a private financial auditor he trusted in Zurich. "Look into this deal," he said. "No paper trail. Just give me facts." The man agreed. And Elias waited. That evening, Camille noticed the sealed folder still sitting on the desk. "You haven't signed?" she asked. "Not yet." Her lips tightened. "You know Jacques hates delays. I'll manage." She didn't push further, but her eyes darkened, and something inside Elias snapped into clarity. This wasn't just business anymore. It was war, and the battlefield wasn't outside. It was right here, inside his own house, inside his own life, and now, he was finally awake. It started with a knock, not loud, not urgent, just enough to pull Elias from the stillness of his study. It was a courier, slim, clean-shaven, holding a second envelope. "This just arrived from Delacroix's office," he said. Elias thanked him, shut the door, and opened the package at his desk. Inside, another set of documents and a handwritten note. Final version. Urgent. "Let's win this, mon frère." Jacques Elias didn't touch the papers. Instead, he opened his encrypted inbox. One new message. Subject line: Confidential findings, Dubai deal audit. He clicked. The report was sharp, concise, brutal. Jacques had been redirecting funds for over 2 years, hidden within shell companies layered under false consultant fees. The payout account on the Dubai deal? An offshore holding registered to an alias Jacques used in Monaco. The scale of the theft was staggering. Millions, possibly more. And Camille, her name appeared twice, once tied to a travel invoice, once in a surveillance photo, stepping out of Jacques' private jet. Elias leaned back, hands folded tightly. The betrayal wasn't a cut. It was an excavation, a hollowing of trust. He stared at the note from Jacques. Let's win this. What game were they playing, and how long had he been the fool? On the board, that night Camille returned late, hair perfectly pinned, perfume loud, voice softer than usual. "How was your day?" she asked. He looked up. Enlightening. She smiled. "Glad to hear. Jacques said you'd be pleased with the revisions." He walked past her, to the glass bar cabinet, poured a drink, turned slowly. "You and Jacques are close." A pause. She tilted her head. "Of course, we're partners, in a way." "In what way?" Her eyes flickered. She took a step back. "Elias, what are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting," he said quietly. "I'm confirming." Silence. She said nothing, but the way her hand gripped the back of the chair, that said everything. He didn't yell, didn't accuse. He simply said, "You and I are done." Camille's lip quivered. "You don't mean that." "I've never meant anything more," and with that he walked out of the room, called his legal advisor, initiated divorce. That same night he had his IT team begin tracing all company communications, linked to Jacques.emails.calls.private server access. By morning, Elias had a folder on his desk, and enough proof to begin the process of removing Jacques as a partner. But what stunned him most was how calm he felt. He wasn't shaking, he wasn't shouting. The storm inside had passed. Now there was only focus, and beneath that, resolve. Later he sat in the garden. The lake below still shimmered, but something in him had shifted forever. Amina approached slowly. "Is it done?" she asked. He nodded. It started. She didn't smile, didn't say, "I told you." She just sat beside him, and together they watched the water. Two people from different worlds, bound by one truth. Lies, no matter how well dressed, eventually rot from the inside, and truth always finds a way to rise. Elias didn't sleep the night after Camille left. He didn't need to. His body stayed still, but his mind moved through 1,000 corridors of memory. Moments he once trusted. Smiles that now felt rehearsed. Laughter that sounded borrowed. He rose at dawn. No alarm. No coffee. Just motion. He walked through every room of the house. The dining room where Camille used to host art dealers. The library where she never touched a book. The guest suite Amina had cleaned to perfection. Every step was a farewell, not to a house but to a version of his life that no longer fit. That afternoon his lawyer called. "Divorce papers are ready." Camille's lawyer accepted the terms. No contest. She didn't fight. She didn't even show up. Elias closed his eyes. There was no victory in it, just silence, the kind that echoed more than it comforted. That night, he ate alone. The kitchen was quiet. No clinking glasses, No Camille arguing about calorie counts or wine pairings. Just a single. Plate in Amina. She placed his meal gently, didn't speak, didn't linger. But as she turned to go, he stopped her. "Sit with me." She hesitated. "I insist," he said softly. She sat. For the first time, she wasn't the help. She was the only person who hadn't asked for anything, who had given only truth. "I never asked," Elias said. "But why did you come to work here?" Amina's fingers traced the rim of her water glass. "My mother passed 2 years ago, cancer. I needed work. My cousin knew someone in service. Got me an interview." "Did you know who I was?" "Not at first, but I learned." Elias nodded. "And the dreams, you've always had them?" She smiled faintly. "In Dakar, they called my grandmother La Veilleuse, the Watcher. People came from other towns to see her. She never charged, just prayed." "She passed it to you?" "She said I'd be where I'm needed most." Elias leaned forward. "You were right about everything." She looked away. "No one's right all the time, but the truth, it always finds its voice." They sat in silence again. This time, not cold, not hollow, but peaceful. Days passed. Elias started waking up with purpose again. He went back to Solstice Holdings. He met with the board. He presented the evidence. And with legal precision, Jacques was removed. No scandal, no press. Just a quiet, thorough cleansing. He brought in young executives, people with vision, people with integrity. He changed protocols, restructured departments, set up new internal checks. Solstice became leaner, stronger, real, but even as the company healed, Elias remained cautious. He no longer trusted easily. He no longer smiled unless he meant it. The world still called him brilliant. But now, he made sure to listen more than he spoke. One afternoon, as he left the office, he saw Amina waiting outside. Not with luggage, not with tears, but with a calm he'd come to understand. "I'm leaving," she said. His breath caught. "Why?" "My time here is finished." "You can stay. I'll triple your pay." She shook her head. "I wasn't sent to stay. I was sent to save." He looked at her. Really looked. Not as a maid, not as a worker, but as a light he didn't know he needed. He opened his mouth to speak, but she raised a hand gently. "You're ready now," she said. "Ready for what?" "To live with your eyes open." And just like that, she turned and walked away, not like someone who was leaving, but like someone who had finished her part in a bigger story. Elias stood there for a long time. Then he whispered to himself, "Thank you." The day after Amina left, the house felt different. Not just quieter, hollow, as if a thread that held it all together had been gently pulled away. Elias stood by the window of his study, staring at the gravel path she had walked down. No suitcase, no goodbye hug, just peace, like a chapter closing with its own grace. He turned from the glass. The silence in the house was no longer unsettling. It was sacred. In the days that followed, he worked harder, but also differently. He greeted staff by name. He read every line of every proposal. He asked questions no one expected, and he watched, not with suspicion, but with awareness. Weeks passed. One morning, Camille's lawyer sent a final envelope. Inside, her signature. No note, no return address, just closure. Elias didn't cry. He didn't sigh. He simply signed his name, folded the document, and returned to work. That evening, he took a different route home. No driver, just him and the wheel. He parked outside a small corner cafe near Rue de la Paix, sat by the window, ordered mint tea, and watched people walk by. He hadn't done that in years. No meetings, no noise, just breathing, just life. Then something unexpected happened. A woman entered the cafe, early 40s, short braids, a book in one hand. She sat 2 tables down, ordered black coffee. Started reading. Elias watched her, not out of attraction, out of curiosity. She smiled to herself while reading, real, unfiltered joy. He leaned over. "Good book?" She looked up, surprised, then smiled back. Very. What's it about? Truth, she said, and the lies we tell to protect ourselves. He chuckled softly. Sounds familiar. They talked, not about business, not about pasts, about music, about cities they loved, about people who had surprised them. Her name was Leah. She worked at a literacy nonprofit organized book drives in underfunded schools, didn't care for yachts or designer watches, cared deeply for children who couldn't read. Elias walked her to the metro. They shook hands, and she said, "You're not like most men I meet here." He replied, "I wasn't always this way." She smiled. "Then I'm glad I met the version you are now." As she disappeared into the tunnel, Elias stood still, not yearning, not aching, just open. That night he returned home, opened the guest room, sat on the edge of the bed Amina once cleaned, and said aloud, "I think I understand now." No one answered, but the stillness felt different, like something had shifted. He slept deeply for the first time in months, and when morning came, he didn't miss the past. He was ready for whatever came next. 1 year later, everything looked the same, but felt entirely different. The villa still sat on the hillside, the lake still shimmered below. But now, there was life in its silence, a rhythm in its stillness. Elias stood on the balcony watering the potted lemon tree. He had never touched a plant before. Now, he did it every morning. It reminded him that growth took time and patience. He no longer wore suits every day, sometimes linen, sometimes just a tee. He still ran Solstice Holdings, but he didn't drown in it. He gave speeches at universities, donated anonymously to mental health causes, and every Wednesday, he volunteered at a school library in Marseille, helping kids pick books, read stories, sometimes just listen. One afternoon, after a reading session, he saw Leah again. She was organizing donated books. Their eyes met, and in that moment, he knew. The past had not broken him. It had rebuilt him brick by careful brick. They had lunch on the school patio, talked about new authors, about language, about silence. "You look lighter," Leah said, sipping iced tea. "I am," Elias replied. She looked at him gently. "You still think of her?" "Amina?" He nodded. "Not every day, but often in quiet ways." Leah smiled. "She passed through like wind, but she changed the air, didn't she?" Elias nodded. Later that week, he returned to the villa and pulled out a framed photo, not of Camille, not of Jacques, but of the company's first team, back when it was just ideas, dreams, and too much coffee. He hung it in the hallway. Next to it, a new frame. Inside, a note Amina had once scribbled and left under his teacup. Not all who serve are silent. Some are sent to speak. It stayed there, a reminder, a tribute, a truth. Months passed. Then one summer evening, Elias received a letter. No return address, just his name, handwritten in perfect, simple script. He opened it carefully. Inside, a single line. "The woman you loved was never a curse, only a lesson, and you, Elias Moreau, have learned." He read it twice, then closed his eyes. Somewhere far away, a quiet laugh echoed in his memory, and for the first time in a long time, he smiled. Not because he needed to, but because the storm had passed, and he had survived it, and grown something beautiful in its place. Maybe it wasn't just a warning, maybe it was a second chance dressed as a servant. Because Amina didn't just clean rooms. She cleared shadows. She didn't just fold sheets. She unfolded truth. And maybe the greatest twist of all is that, in a world where wealth speaks loudest, it took silence to save a man. So next time someone whispers what you don't want to hear, pause, look deeper, because sometimes what feels like superstition is protection, and what looks like weakness is grace. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more stories that remind us not all heroes wear capes. Some wear aprons and leave behind legacies too powerful to forget.